Mel, everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everyone, Cantonese Cat here. I want to go talk a little bit about the Bitcoin miners and just to give you some generalized thoughts about it. First of all, I think a lot of people are following me, a lot of people are listening to my videos, watching my videos, looking at these miners, but I'm not sure if a lot of you are, fully aware of the risks that these miners could represent. You're talking about speculation on a speculative asset such as Bitcoin. I mean, a lot of us know that it's not nearly as speculative as it was before. A lot of us know that, what Bitcoin means. A lot of us have already had to have our laser eyes turned on, but that's not necessarily the case for a lot of people. I think a lot of people mostly just get into it because of the hype. They don't really know what it's all about, and they don't know what kind of risk they're getting themselves into. I'm just going to say right out loud, it's not unimaginable for these Bitcoin miners on an average day to be going up plus or minus or going down plus or minus 15 to 20%. This is like normal volatility for Bitcoin miners. If you cannot handle that, and if that's not the kind of risk tolerance that you're able to handle, and you really have to know what you're getting yourself into. At any point of history, if you're not timing things right, which again is very, very tough to time in the market, if you're not timing things right, if you're not following the trend, next thing you know, you could end up really losing like 90%, 95% of your money easy if you end up buying at areas that you're not supposed to be buying at. And the tough part is that usually the areas that you're going to buy at are that you feel safe about. Everybody's super bullish about it, and there's a lot of narratives that go along with it. And everybody seems to be talking about it at that particular moment. That's usually when it's the most dangerous time to buy, and that's usually when you might end up being exit liquidity and end up just not doing very well. So as far as I'm concerned, it's important to follow trend. And there are three things I want to kind of talk about what Bitcoin miners generally follow. First thing is they do follow their own technicals. They are stocks. They're not, crypto. Even crypto kind of follow their own technicals too. But they're stocks. They're individual stocks. They have their own supply and demand dynamics, and they do follow certain market conditions. So you do want to think about them as individual stocks that can follow their own technicals. If they keep on forming higher highs, a little bit of a low right here, higher high, higher low, and this wick right here is actually a little bit of a higher high, so it counts as a higher high, and right now it's trying to put in a higher low. That's a nice bull trend all the way from, you're really talking all the way from December of 2022 up to here in this point in March 2024. It's a very, very nice bull trend. Even a person who's not into technical analysis can see that. The question is more, when does the bull trend actually start to become parabolic, and when does the bull trend actually end? We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, try to show you some indicators to investigate that and try to give you some better ideas in terms of what we're thinking. Ultimately, all of this are just an educated guess. These are all things that we do to try our best to try to time it. There's going to be risks that are involved, and if you enter something like this, you have to be prepared to lose a significant chunk amount of your money to punch a ticket to potentially make some extraordinary gains. And a lot of people forget about the risk part. But anyway, each of these follow their own technicals. Right now is in a bull trend. And right now it's not parabolic. I'm going to show you a little bit of the technicals in a little bit. The other thing that Bitcoin miners follow is obviously follow Bitcoin. Bitcoin's gone parabolic. So this sets up one of the two conditions, or one of the three conditions that the miners can do very well. But it doesn't necessarily have to follow Bitcoin's price, and it didn't really do that at the beginning either. One particular reason why is because Bitcoin is going through a halving event in mid-April, and there's a lot of fear when it comes to that. The narratives of Bitcoin halving is not necessarily a good thing for miners, so they say, because what halving basically means is that the rewards that you would get from mining Bitcoins would be halved. But there are also a lot of other dynamics too when it comes to that. So we'll get into a little bit about that in a sec. But one potential fear event is Bitcoin halving, which again, I think for the most part is more or less kind of priced in. So I think they might be pricing in the bad rumors now by having a lot of selling pressure. Whereas when the event actually happens, and the fear of the Bitcoin halving event is after it's already happened, we might end up having people buying the news because the fear was already happening, and there really wasn't that big of a deal. Bitcoin continues to do well, miners continue to make money. So, but there might be a little bit of a lag because of that. But condition number one is Bitcoin has to do well, and presumably after this kind of hiccup in terms of the halving uncertainties are past us. But condition number two, which I think is probably more relatable and more relevant, is that these stocks are small cap stocks. You're talking about Mara, who has a market cap maybe around like $5 billion, which is one of the biggest Bitcoin miner stocks out there. You're talking about CleanSpark or CLSK, you're talking about market cap around $3.5 billion. You're talking about Bitfarms has only got $1 billion. You're talking about some of the smaller ones like Irene and Wolf. They're about $500 million. Like, this is nothing compared to the market cap of Bitcoin, which right now is like above 1.3, 1.4 trillion dollars. Like, this is nothing in comparison to some of the altcoins out there. A lot of the altcoins are like easily like $1 billion, a few $1 billion. It's nothing in comparison to that. So I still think there's a lot of potential liquidity being flowed into Bitcoin miners, but they are small cap stocks, so they are going to be subjected to how the small caps are going to do. The small caps are best visualized and best looked at in terms of the trend, in terms of price action with IWM, which is the ETF that signifies for the Russell 2000 index. You can also do a Russell 2000 index and just follow that. I like to follow IWM because that's something that I could potentially chart. The only thing that you need to know is the all-time high for IWM was 244.46. Right now, IWM price is at 202.41. So there's still a long ways to go before it hits this all-time high. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the monthly chart, this last 3 months or so, it kind of looks like how Mara looked like, doesn't it? It's also not near its all-time high, just like IWM is not near its all-time high. Matter of fact, a lot of people like to play leverage on small cap stocks. On IWM, there's a triple leverage. Version of IWM called TNA. Some people like to play that, but I would like to look at Bitcoin miners as sucking in the same level of liquidity as IWM or TNA, except that this is probably going to be more of an even crazier leverage play than triple leverage small cap. So to give you a little bit of context, that's why we're looking at here. And the more leverage you're looking at is a leverage play of both Bitcoin and small caps. And the third thing, so first thing is Bitcoin, second thing is IWM or small caps. Third thing is these are stocks and they follow their own technicals. So I'm going to show you a little bit in terms of their technicals, a lot of their supply and demand metrics and dynamics, things like that. But that's basically the three things that it follows, and the conditions are still not ripe yet. So that's why they're lagging behind Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned. But I also made a video about over a week ago, give you an idea. I actually showed you some of the miners that have already been around the last cycle, and I showed you the evidence why I think Bitcoin is outperforming the miners and why I think miners will catch up. And I show you, how IWM or small caps are very important for that. If you want to watch that video to kind of catch up on my thoughts, to show you exactly what happened in November of November of 2020, right here, this candle right here. Please watch that video, and but the gist of it, if too long didn't watch kind of thing, is that in November of 2020 was when you have this big giant candle right here that has really helped propel the Bitcoin miners to do very well during that time. November of 2020. Bitcoin was already going up right around here, but the miners really start catching up around that time. Now, why am I showing Mara? Why am I not showing CleanSpark? Why am I not showing, the other newer miners? Why am I not showing the WGMI, the Bitcoin miner, ETFs? Why am I not showing any of that? Because they're relatively new. Mara has been around the block for quite some time, so has Riot. I can show you Riot maybe a little bit. These have been around the block for quite some time, so I can actually look and tell you what I saw from last cycle versus this cycle. Even within Mara, they didn't really start mining Bitcoin until around 2019 or so. So even before that, like all this other junk right here, they're not really necessarily reflective of what Mara is doing right now. They really didn't start mining Bitcoin until 2019. And what I would like to show is, I did show this chart on X earlier. I kind of want to show you how I did this. There are two indicators I want to pull up. One indicator is one of my favorite, Ichimoku Cloud. You can do that by looking at indicator and just search for Ichimoku Cloud, and you can find it right there. When you click on it, this is the monthly chart. So you're looking at the monthly version of the Ichimoku Cloud. Give you a little bit better explanation if you look at the just online resources that are available. You look at Investopedia. They'll tell you exactly how these lines are calculated. They're not hard to look at, although they might look a little bit daunting at first. There's a conversion line. Some people label it with a different color. In this particular case, the default is labeled as red. Another name for conversion line is Tenkan. This is usually a line that gets ahead of the price action. You also have a line that kind of lags behind a little bit. It's called baseline, and also called the Kijun line. In this particular case, is labeled as blue. And this is a little bit lagging behind. So you have one that moves a little bit faster and one that lags behind. So during a bull market, you're going to see the Tenkan most likely going to get above the Kijun, or the conversion is going to get above the base. And during a bear market, the Tenkan, which is the conversion line, is going to get ahead of the Kijun. So the Tenkan or the conversion line is going to be below the Kijun line to signify that there is a bear market going on. These lines are calculated by a very simple formula. It basically is a period average. It takes into account the period high and the period low, and it basically takes an average of the two, and it keeps on moving. So because it's a period high and period low, not a moving average of the entire thing overall, but it takes a look, for example, it takes a look at a period of like 9 different candles. It looks at the highs, looks at the low, and during this time, they're saying, okay, so the last 9 candles, the average is this. Right. So because of that, the Ichimoku Cloud lines with the conversion of base or Tenkan and Kijun gives you a lot more stability in terms of the line, in terms of how it moves. And it's not going to be as tricky and as dynamic as the moving averages that some people use, because you also have to choose the right moving average that you want to use too. But with this, it gives you a pretty decent set of lines right here to kind of tell you what price is doing, whether or not there has already been a bearish cross, whether or not there's a bullish cross, whether or not there's a bearish cross right over here, signifying there's a bear market, whether or not there's a bullish cross right here, signifying there's a longer term bull market that's about to come. So because of that, it's very helpful. Now, with these two lines and with some additional calculations, you have something that came out here as the Ichimoku Cloud. The Ichimoku Cloud and all of these Kijun line and Tenkan line, conversion and baseline, if you will. All of this, if you don't have to think about it as too hard, you don't have to overcomplicate it. All you need to know is that these are resistance lines or they are support lines. That's all you really need to know. They also can tell you the trend depending on how things are stacking on top of one another. The cloud also serves as the same thing. It can serve as either as a resistance level or a support level. If the line of these conversion and base lines are pointing down, they're most likely going to serve as more of a resistance than as a support. If they start pointing up, usually they're going to serve as a better support than they are resistance. The cloud itself, same thing. If it's pointing down, if the cloud gets a little bit too thick, and also if it's red, generally those are criteria to tell you that the cloud is going to serve more as a resistance level, as it has over here. It took about, really took about like 2 years to try to push above the cloud, and so far we're still not above it for Mara. So it's a very, very strong resistance level over here because it's thick, it's red, and it's pointing down. Now, when things are getting thinner, when things are turning green, if they're pointing up, that gives you a better chance that this is going to be less of a resistance and more of a support level. Just like the lines, just like Tenkan, once the Tenkan or the conversion line is starting to point upwards, price did break down below here back in September 2023, but because the line was pointing upwards, it served as a better support than resistance. It's not a very good resistance. And sure enough, in December 2023, price pushed back above because the Tenkan is pointing up. The other thing to look at is trend, as I talked about the bearish cross between the Tenkan and Kijun, or the base and conversion. Here's a bullish cross that happened here during the last bull cycle that has pushed price up. Here's the bearish cross that ended up, happening during the bear market, and now we just recently had a bullish cross right around here. The key thing here is that there are a couple of things I see that are very similar between here and here, kind of at the early parts of the bull cycle, as we did last time. And I'm also going to pull up, in addition to the Ichimoku cloud, I just want to make it clear in terms of what I'm looking at when I look at the Ichimoku cloud. But I also want to pull up another indicator that I found to be very helpful. It's called Blackcat L3 Banker Fund Flow Trend Oscillator, and this is entirely searchable. You just search Blackcat L3 Banker, it's going to pop right up. I just favorited it, that's all. If you pull it up, it's going to give you some pretty interesting things here. The couple of things it gives you, it does give you a buy signal right here, which turned out to be a pretty decent tool right here. It doesn't always work all the time, as you have one over here, and price just kind of kept plummeting after that. But sometimes it's good. Basically, this oscillator happens whenever they detect like big money fund inflow into the stock. And this is what it's supposed to represent. It's supposed to represent the big money, the whales, buying into this underlying assets. And right here, we had a buy signal in around June 2020. And right here, we also had another buy signal in December 2023. So after this had happened, it does seem, unlike last time when it happened, after this happened on the last cycle, it does seem that inflow just started being very, very parabolic. And so has the price. The thing is, it looks like a very similar thing is starting now. It looks like we had a buy signal here. It looks like we have very much an increased inflow of fund that's happening right now. Now, what are some of the things to look at here that are the three things that looks like we're going through the same thing as we are going through around here, but between, June and November, I think we're looking very similar here, potentially from December 2023 to maybe April or May, who knows, of 2024. There are three candles over here that are going sideways, just like there are three candles over here that are going sideways for 3 months. During this period of time, you continue to have increase in inflow. But there is a divergence. There's an increased inflow of money, of capital, but the price really hasn't moved all that much. Makes you wonder why that is. Maybe there's some resistance here. Maybe there's some resistance levels here that is causing absorption of this, supply above from the previous level here. There's a lot of people that bought over here. They're trying to sell. And I think that we are just having a lot of big money inflow and trying to absorb all of that supply potentially before pushing up. You have months number 1, 2, 3, and 4 already trying to push about this level right here. The more it tries to push and the more money comes in from big money, I think you're going to end up eating all the supply, and it's probably going to go up a lot sooner than later. Some of the resistance above that could be this Ichimoku cloud right here, but I'm not even sure if this is going to be that big of a resistance because how thin and how green this is. We'll see what happens. You might have some volatility once it gets up here before going up. But I think that this is very similar look over here as opposed to here. 3 months of sideways, trying to push about this level. 3 months of sideways, trying to push about this level. Inflows coming in. These are all green. You just had a buy signal here and buy signal there to tell you that there's a change of dynamics in terms of outflow and inflow. Outflow is red, inflow is green. The other thing that also happened is this. Now over here, it took just maybe a few months for the Ichimoku cloud to be able to tell that there's a bull trend coming. The Kijun, which is the base, crossed to it the conversion, which is the Tenkan. Yet a very bullish Tenkan Kijun cross that happened right here. Now, the problem over here is that price is still below both of these, and they can serve as resistance for the price for months number 1 and 2. And because of that, price really wasn't able to push up. But after 3 months, after significant inflow coming in, on the 4th month is able to push above both of these, and both of these becoming, basically they join together, becoming more of like a katana kind of thing. They fuse together and they push price up a lot higher. This is a very, very bullish look over here. It had a bullish cross, and after price breaks bet above both of the Tenkan and Kijun lines, it just went parabolic upwards afterwards. Right now, we're seeing a very, very similar thing. 3 months is sideways, but you also have the same Tenkan and Kijun cross right around here. The good thing is price is already above the Kijun. It's still a little bit below the Tenkan. Now right now is March 17th. Tomorrow's going to be March 18th. Market's going to open again. I don't know whether or not price is going to end up staying between these two. I don't know whether or not the price is going to end up falling underneath of it. I don't care. It had a bullish price. It has a bullish cross right here between the Kijun and the Tenkan. And then the price is trying to use that as support. It's just testing the support right now. It could fall below that and close the month. I don't really care, because inflow continues to be pointing up. This is a pretty bullish setup for Mara. The other stocks I want to kind of show you real quick, because I don't want to kind of go over time. I see a very, very similar thing that's happening with Riot right now. You have a significant amount of inflow that's building up really over the last 7 or 8 months. It's been kind of a little bit of inflow going sideways. Price has also kind of gone sideways. But generally, there's more inflow than outflow, and I think there's an increase in inflow that's happening right now. That also is, starting to happen over here as well. You have candles with 1, 2, and 3 that are kind of gone sideways. And you also have a lot of candles over here, but these candles that have gone sideways happened right before the Tenkan Kijun cross. The Tenkan Kijun cross has already happened, and I think we're going to spend maybe the next month or two trying to break above and use them as support to kind of push price a lot higher from that. And the inflow so far, even though it's not as impulsive as Mara, Mara has a pretty nice inflow up here and here. Riot just doesn't really have quite the energy to try to do that quite just yet, but overall the idea is the same. The other Bitcoin miner that looks more like Mara is actually Bitfarms. It didn't have as much inflow data back over here. A lot of times it takes about a couple years for you to actually start having these kind of inflow data to be calculated. What you're really seeing is you have a buy signal right here, and there's a lot of significant inflow coming in, just like Mara. And you're just about to get this Tenkan Kijun cross, not quite just yet, but you can see that it's going to happen. And the other thing is to spend months number 1, 2, and 3 sideways. Yeah, so because of this, I think that it's building up a lot of energy. It has a very similar look as Mara. I think Bitfarms is probably going to end up doing pretty well. In addition to Bitfarms, one of the other ones to look at, that's the most popular one right now, is CLSK. CLSK is a little bit tricky. It didn't really become a Bitcoin miner until December 2020. And this buying signal actually is not quite accurate. But inflow did keep coming in regardless. I wanted you to ignore this whole thing right here, because it's not fair to look at CleanSpark. They really didn't start mining Bitcoin until December 2020. And so far it's just been kind of like a downtrend. And I want to ignore everything that's to the left over here. But to the right over here, very similar thing has happened. As a matter of fact, the buy signal happened earlier than Mara. The cross is also happening around the same time as Mara did. And you can see there's a significant increase in terms of inflow. And this is even more parabolic compared to Mara. And you can see the price also a little bit more positive compared to Mara as a result of increased inflow. You had a bullish cross right here. Right now it's just hitting a little bit of resistance from this volume shelf around here, as well as from the bottom of this Ichimoku cloud. I do think if you give it enough time, because there's significant inflow, it's still absorbing a lot of these supply over here. But you give it enough time, maybe another month or so perhaps, I see it breaking into the Ichimoku cloud. Above that, there's not really a whole lot of volume shelf around here. And I can see the price going up pretty much very high by the end of 2024. I think the price, there's possibility to get up to like the 70s. I really think it's possible because of the impulsiveness of this inflow, because it's eating a lot of supply above, pushing against the resistance pretty impulsively. I think if you give it towards the end of the year, I think it's going to be up here. Now, in between doing that, it's going to go do some pretty crazy things that looks kind of small like that. But if you can look at the price, like the top price right here of this candle is like 12.6. The bottom of this is like 6.41. I mean, you're really talking about more than 50% fluctuations, or sorry, a little less than 50% fluctuation here in just a month. It can drive a lot of people crazy because if you don't have a long-term mindset, if you don't know how to look at trend, if you're not be prepared to lose all your money, you really shouldn't be in this. But I just want to show you that right now CleanSpark's got a pretty nice bull trend. It's got a lot of nice inflow as far as we can tell. A couple of other ones, HUT is not ready. There is not really any significant inflow. Maybe towards the end of the cycle or mid-cycle, HUT might catch up as liquidity tends to flow, from one asset to another. But right now, it just doesn't have the technicals to support it. The other ones that are a lot, smaller. Actually, I want to show you BTBT. A lot of the ones that are a little bit smaller. BTPT also looks kind of like Riot, where you have some inflow coming in. There's increase in inflow, but price still kind of went sideways. So there's a little bit of divergence here, just like Riot. And I think that this inflow is going to help absorb some of the supply right around here. And it's going to get above the Tenkan and Kijun line. But they already had a bullish cross. I think price just needs to get above all these lines to build up some momentum to keep push upwards. But BTPT, I'll probably say that it looks just like just like Riot. Some of the smaller Bitcoin miners, they just don't have the ready look for it. First of all, I don't have the data for the monthly from these because they haven't really been around for that long. Bullish cross is still not happening yet. Tenkan still serve as resistance. So there's not really a whole lot of things I can chart here. Now this is Irene. Wolf actually looks even worse. It's like a little bit further away from the bullish cross here with the Tenkan and Kijun. And if you look at the buying signal here, Wolf has been around for longer, but again, they didn't really have like a full cycle to play out. Right now, it did give a buy signal. There's an increase in inflow. There's much less outflow, and there's an increase in inflow that just happened this month. So there's actually a buy signal over here. It's promising. The more inflow you're going to have, the more likely it's going to end up pushing through this kind of resistance level over here. And I think that if this is a true trend change, which looks like it is in terms of inflow and outflow of big money, I think some pretty bullish things are probably going to happen here for Wolf as well. But so far, it just really hasn't quite gotten there yet, unfortunately. We'll see what happens, but I'm pretty encouraged by this buy signal here. But we'll see what happens. The other one that actually has been kind of a little bit neglected, but actually has a pretty good technical going for it. But unfortunately, it still hasn't been around too long enough for me to have the inflow data or outflow data from Blackcat. It did have a bullish cross over here, Cyber CIFR, bullish cross. Price is still below the Tenkan, but it's above the Kijun. So it's just kind of squeezed between the two. I have a feeling if I have the inflow outflow data, it's going to be pointing up. And it's probably still spending a lot of time trying to eat all kinds of supply right around this level right up here. It spent almost close to a year trying to eat through this. So I think when it does break through, I think it's probably going to be pretty powerful in terms of what it's going to do. There are some resistance, volume shelf levels up here. But if I have to guess, I think inflows are coming in. And I think it's probably going to be a pretty decent bet. There are a couple other ones. I'm not going to show too much. I think the video is already getting close to 30 minutes. I just want to kind of share with you my thoughts, how I came up with the chart on Mara, what my thoughts are about miners in general. I haven't had as much time during the weekday to kind of go through that. But on the weekend, I just want to spend a good chunk of time to tell you my thoughts about the miners. The key thing is you have to know what your risk tolerances are. You have to know what you're looking at. And you also have to know that none of these are financial advice. None of these are guaranteed. These are just educated guess. We're looking at all these indicators, trying to find trends, trying to figure out what the price is going to do. Try not be frustrated because all these price action that we're looking at right now has an explanation. So there's no reason to get frustrated just because your expectation wasn't met. Maybe your expectation wasn't realistic in the first place. So it's good to know what you're thinking. It's good to know what your risk tolerances are. And it's not everybody should get into Bitcoin miners. I don't care how potential gains you might be able to get. Not everybody should get into it because if you're not one of those folks that follow these kind of stuff closely, if you don't know where you're looking at, if you don't know the trend, you don't know, you just kind of rely on people and cats like myself to tell you what to do. And we don't do that. We just show you what we see. You have to ultimately make your own decision. You press the buy and sell button. Or you do nothing at all. This is also a valid option. I want you to know what I'm thinking, and I want you to know what I know, which is not much. And I want you to help me to learn. And I want you to tell me if I'm wrong. I want you to be here and let me know if you have any questions. I'll try my best to answer it. But as always, thank you for listening. Have a good one. Bye.